What is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be getting into my 23rd of January edition of the Bracketology. Another wild Saturday of college basketball, and yesterday, I guess, a little bit of some games in there as well, but man, that was a crazy Saturday. If you watch some of those games, it was nuts. But anyway, let's get into this bracket here. Starting with this bracket watch, and the top row seed is remaining Purdue. After beating Iowa this weekend. Gonzaga trying to climb their way back up. They're the first team out. And the last team in is the Oregon Ducks. In the bubble right now, we have the last four byes. TCU, who almost came back down by like 20-something against Iowa State to win that one, but unfortunately it came up too short. Then you got New Mexico, Northwestern, and then South Carolina. Then the last for him, we do have Kansas State, Ole Miss, Cincinnati, who almost beat Kansas last night, and then we have Oregon. The first four out, we do have Gonzaga, Providence, Colorado, and then Wake Forest, who beat Duke this weekend, but did lose to North Carolina last night. Then the next four out, we do have Indiana State, Nevada, Florida, and Texas. Look at this full bracket here. New to the field there is 16 seed Delaware State. Cincinnati's fallen to the 12 seed, as well as Oregon falling to the 12. Then Ole Miss dropping down to that 11 seed. Ole Miss has had a rough time to start out this SEC performance. In the Midwest region, though, we do have Purdue as that number one overall seed. Iowa State handling business against TCU, jumping up to the 5 seed. We have Dayton continuing to win, jumping up to the 4 seed. Charlotte new to the field, that's a 13 seed. Grand Canyon going to be falling to that 11 seed. Kansas dropping down to the 2 seed after losing to West Virginia. Kansas, they've just been a little bit inconsistent all year, basically. And now coming into Big 12 play, they lose to West Virginia, who's one of the worst teams in the Big 12. And then they almost lose to Cincinnati at home last night. Cincinnati's a good team, but still. Keep your eye on Kansas in this tournament. And then we do have South Dakota State new to the field at that 15. In the East region, we do have UConn at the number one overall seed right there. They just barely survived versus Villanova this weekend. And then we have Texas Tech jumping up to the 8 seed, coming back down by 16 at the half against my BYU Cougars. I was very frustrated in that one, but that was a big-time win for Texas Tech. And then also a big-time win, number 9, new to the field, Boise State, beating San Diego State this weekend. Huge win for them. Then we have Duke going to be falling to that 4 seed. Memphis going to be dropping down to the 6 seed. TCU dropping down to the 10, and then Oakland dropping down to the 15. In this South region, North Carolina now up to this one line. They have been dominant in ACC play so far. Have had a few close calls, but have really broken away in those second halves. And then we have Seton Hall dropping into the 8. They had a crazy, when I mean crazy game versus Creighton. They had a lot of chances to win that one. Some things didn't go their way, and they unfortunately lost it in triple overtime. Then Nebraska going to be jumping up to the 9 seed. Alabama going to be falling to the 5 seed. Last time I brought them to my Final Four, or actually even the national championship game, and look what happens. Right when I say that, they get pounced by Tennessee. And then we have Colorado State dropping out of the 6 seed. Marquette just barely surviving versus St. John's. They're going to be jumping up to the 3 seed. This is not right, but Michigan State's going to be jumping up to the 7 seed right there. And then New Mexico new to the field at the 10. In the West region, Houston, the number 1 seed still over there. Sam Houston going to be dropping down to the 16. Texas A&M jumping up to the 8 seed, as well as St. John's, as I mentioned, having that heartbreaking loss to Marquette. They're going to be falling to the 9 seed. Appalachian State new to the field, that's a 13 seed. South Carolina jumping up to the 11. Illinois jumping up to the 3. UMass Lowell new to the field at a 14. And then UC Davis new to the field at a 15. All right, but let's get into this bracket now. Starting out with the first four, we have Cincinnati, Oregon. I am going to have to go with the Big 12 team there in Cincinnati to pull off the win. Delaware State, Lafayette. I'm going to go with Delaware State to pull off that one. Kansas State, Ole Miss. I do think that Kansas State's going to win that one. Ole Miss has been, like I said, just have been not good in in SEC play so far. And then Central Connecticut, I think, pulls off the win over Jackson State. Okay, but for a spot in the round of 32, I do think that Purdue will survive versus Delaware State. I am going to go with Villanova, the 8 seed, to pull off the win over Mississippi State. Iowa State, I do think, holds on versus Samford. Dayton beats Charlotte. Then I'm going to go with the 11/6 upset here. I'm going to go with Grand Canyon. San Diego State, don't get me wrong, this is a good team. They're a battle-tested team. A loss to Boise State is not anything to be ashamed of, but I am going to go with Grand Canyon. I'm a believer in Grand Canyon. They've had a really good season, really good mid-major team that can pull off an upset. I do think San Diego State could get upset, and that's what I'm going to go with right there. And then Auburn, I do think, pulls off the win over Eastern Washington. I'm going to go with a slight 10/7 there with Northwestern pulling off the win over Utah. And then Kansas, I think, holds off South Dakota State. In this region, Houston, Sam Houston, battle of two Houston schools. Give me Houston. St. John's, I think, will pull off the slight 9/8 upset over Texas A&M. I'm going to go with the 12/5 upset here. Don't get me wrong, Oklahoma, really good team, but so is Drake, another really good mid-major school I'm a believer in. I'm going to go with Drake to pull off the win to move on to the round of 32. And then Creighton, I do think, beats Appalachian State. Florida Atlantic, I think, would hold off South Carolina, but that could be an upset. Illinois, I think, beats UMass. St. Mary's, Utah State, good matchup. I think at this point in time, I'm going to go with the 7 seed, Utah State. And then Arizona, I think, will hold off UC Davis, but Arizona's not been the best team either, just barely beating UCLA. They had to really come back in that one. Up here in this region, UConn, Eastern Kentucky. I am going to go with, not Eastern Kentucky, going to go with UConn. Texas Tech, Boise State, good matchup, but I think I would have to favor Texas Tech in that game from the way they played in that second half versus BYU. Very impressive. And then BYU, I do think, would be able to beat McNeese State. Duke, I think, would be Akron. Memphis, Princeton. I'm still a believer in Memphis, guys. Princeton is another one of those teams that I could see pulling off the upset, but I don't like them as much as like a team like Grand Canyon or some of those other teams. I am going to go with Memphis to pull off this win. And then Kentucky, I do think, will pull off the win over High Point. Clemson, TCU, 7-10. I'm going to go with the 10/7 upset there with TCU. And then Wisconsin, I think, pulls off the win over Oakland. In this region, North Carolina, Central Connecticut, give me North Carolina. Seton Hall, Nebraska. I am going to go with Seton Hall in that game. I know it seems like I've been pecking all of the Big East teams, but I just believe in this conference right now. So give me them to pull off the win over Nebraska. Alabama, Cincinnati, I'm still going to put my faith in that Alabama team. Give me them to beat Cincinnati. Baylor, I do think, pulls off the win over Drexel. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick here. I'm going to go with Kansas State to pull off the win over Colorado State. You know, like I say in a lot of videos, there usually is a team from the first four that gets the win in the round of 64. I do think Kansas State could be that team this year. Colorado State, good team out of the Mountain West, but I do think they lose that one. And then Marquette, I do think, pulls off the win over Morehead State, but that one could be upset territory. Marquette's been a little bit inconsistent. Michigan State, I think, would pull off the win over New Mexico, as well as Tennessee beating St. Peter's. All right, Purdue, Villanova, 1 versus an 8 seed. I am going to go with Purdue pulling off the win. Iowa State, Dayton, 5 versus a 4 seed. Really good matchup. I'm honestly going to give my faith here to Dayton. You know, the almost blown lead gives me a little bit hesitancy on a team like Iowa State. So give me Dayton to pull off a big win. That's a tight one, though. Auburn, Grand Canyon, as much as I like Grand Canyon, I do think they would fall to Auburn. And then Kansas, I think, would pull off the win over Northwestern. Surviving, though. That could be an upset, but give me Kansas. All right, Houston, St. John's. I'm going to go with Rick Pitino to pull off the upset over Houston. Houston, don't get me wrong, they're a really good team, but man, oh man, this St. John's team's getting slept on. They are making runs in this tournament here, or in Big East play. They've almost beaten some of the best teams, even at Marquette, or I was actually in St. John's, but still, almost beat them. I mean, this is a good St. John's team. Houston's been a little bit inconsistent ever since they've joined the Big 12. So I do think I go with the upset there. And then Drake Creighton, 12 versus a 4 seed. I want to go with Drake, but I don't think I'm going to do it. Give me Creighton to pull off the win there. And then Illinois, I do think holds off Florida Atlantic. And Arizona, I think will also just barely survive versus Utah State. All right, up here, UConn, Texas Tech. Give me Connecticut to pull off the win. BYU Duke, I'm still going to have faith in my BYU Cougars in this type of matchup. I do think I'm going to go with BYU, though, to pull off the win. And then Memphis, Kentucky. Not Memphis. I do think I would have to go with Kentucky in that game. And then Wisconsin, TCU. I'm going to go with Wisconsin, the 2 seed, to pull off the win, but tight one there as well. It's a little bit of chalky in that region. We do have that BYU upset, though. North Carolina, Seton Hall. I am going to go with the Tar Heels to pull off the win over Seton Hall. Really good matchup between 5 seed Alabama and 4 seeded Baylor. I'm going to go with, why not? Let's go with Baylor here. Flip it up from last time. This was a Final Four matchup. I do think Baylor gets the win in that particular matchup. Kansas State, Marquette. Why not? Let's go with the 11-seeded Kansas State making a run. Like I said, I'm just because of they beat St. John's on Saturday doesn't mean I'm fully back on the Marquette train. Kansas State's playing good basketball in the Big 12. And occurrence here, a lot of Big 12 teams moving on. That's how I think it's going to be this tournament. So give me Kansas State to pull off the win over Marquette. And then Michigan State, Tennessee. Last time I would easily pick Michigan State, but I got to give credit to Tennessee, man. They completely demolished a red-hot Alabama team. I'm going to have to get on their train. Give me Tennessee to pull off the win. Okay, so now for a spot in the Elite Eight. Purdue, Dayton. I just don't think Dayton's going to be able to pull off that big of an upset. Give me Purdue to move on. Then Auburn, Kansas. Kansas run, I think, comes to an end. Give me 3-seeded Auburn, a team I'm a big believer in. I think they just barely move on to the Elite Eight. St. John's, Creighton, 9 versus a 4 seed. Why not? Let's go with Rick Pitino's squad to move on to the Elite Eight. I'm a believer in that St. John's team. It's a really good team. Give me them to pull off the win over Creighton. And then Illinois, Arizona. I'm going to go with the 3-seeded Illinois in that matchup, playing good basketball out of the Big Ten as well right there. And then UConn versus BYU. As much as I want to go with my Cougars, I just can't do that there. Beating Duke, even McNeese State is a good team. And then going up against UConn, I just can't see us winning all those games in a row at this point in time. Give me UConn. Also, a big game between BYU and Houston tonight that if you have ESPN Plus, you should for sure stay tuned to. It's down in Provo. It's going to be a good matchup. But then Wisconsin, Kentucky. Wisconsin's impressed me, but I don't think they've impressed me enough to beat a really good Kentucky team. Give me them to pull off the win over Wisconsin. And North Carolina, Baylor, 1 versus a 4 seed. I am not to go with the third 1 seed to move on here to the Elite Eight. Give me North Carolina. And then Kansas State, Tennessee. I am going to have to give Tennessee some love. I mean, I had 15 seeds beating Tennessee earlier on in these bracketologies, but they've won me over, at least for now. Give me Tennessee to pull off the win over K-State. All right, now we'll see who the Final Four is. Purdue, Auburn. Really good matchup, man. I really like both of these teams, but I do think at this point I would have to go with Zach Edey and Purdue to move on to the Final Four. And then a really interesting matchup, 9 versus 3. I just don't see St. John's beating a really good Illinois team there, though. Give me Illinois as a 3 seed. So 2 Big Ten teams in the Final Four right there. UConn, Kentucky. Sorry, Kentucky. 1 versus a 3 seed. Let's give Kentucky some love. I gave UConn the national championship last time. I'm going to flip it up this time. Give me Kentucky to move on to the Final Four. Another 3 seed right there. And then North Carolina and Tennessee. I do think North Carolina would be able to handle business against the Volunteers. So now our Final Four set, we have 2 1 seeds in Purdue and North Carolina and 2 3 seeds in Kentucky and Illinois. So a rematch of a Big Ten play that we had a couple weeks ago. Purdue, Illinois. I do think Purdue would win that one in another rematch there. Give me Purdue. And then Kentucky, North Carolina. Sorry, my voice just randomly decided to not work, but I am going to have to go with North Carolina. Battle of Blue Bloods. I'm a big believer in this North Carolina team, though. Give me them to win that one. And then for the championship, Purdue and North Carolina. At this point in time, I'm going to have to go with North Carolina. They're playing really good basketball. I do think Baycott and that well-coached North Carolina team can find a way to limit Zach Edey in this one. And then I think the explosiveness of North Carolina would get the win. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video today. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the content. Comment down below your predictions. Anyway, guys, peace out.